Hi, welcome SUSE QE Tools Workshop this week. Today will be about scripting in the environment of OpenQA, around OpenQA and such. I heard it will be a full a workshop, so with real coding, not just a bare presentation. So yeah, over to Phoenix. Your voice.
Thank you, Ollie. So today we are going to do a little bit of Python. We are trying to do this live in the screen. And the aim of this workshop/presentation hybrid form is that we are getting in contact with the OpenQA API. We are learning how to check the API for available methods. And in the end, we want to write a basic example on how to query the API for some basic tasks. And the intention of this example is that in the end, you have a template which helps you to fulfill the some more advanced monitoring or automation tasks that you want to work on. So the story of this workshop was that Chris 2 months ago contacted me and was like, let's do a workshop about the OpenQA API. And I kind of let myself be convinced to do this. This will be more or less really a basic introduction to the things. However, the aim is really to provide you a good template at the end of this workshop that you can use for your future projects. So let's dive right into. The OpenQA API is pretty monstrous, enormous, and very useful. The only thing is, or the question that arises is, how do I check what is available there and how do I do it? And I just show you the way how I always approached it. So if you are on any OpenQA instance, for this presentation, I will use openqa.opensuse.org, but it works with any other page. The moment when you are on a 404 page, it reveals all the available routes. So for instance, if we just go to /API, which per se doesn't give you anything, you come to the typical page not found page. And this page is amazing because if you go on this page down and you search for API/version1, you see all the available paths that are exported and that you can use. Next to it, you also see the available methods, but for most of the cases, at least for what I have been doing, just knowing the path, it was quite self-explanatory to find out what ways OpenQA allows you to do to actually do something. And the interaction methods are really enormous. You can cancel job, you can restart job, you really can interact in any possible means. You just need to figure out a way how to do it. So the first thing that we learn here is if you are on a random 404 page, then you see all the available paths and methods that you can actually use. And to illustrate this, we are just going to do a simple curl for the beginning where we are just fetching one of the jobs. We are using this link here, which is just API version1/jobs and then the job number. And for this presentation, I just pick one of the latest tumbleweed jobs. I just go to 03, and then this job is just fine. And I copy the job ID from here. Okay, it's 1934346. It doesn't matter so much. So what we are going to do now is that I open the terminal, and we are just going to curl openqa.opensuse.org/API/v1/jobs and the job ID. So this is the base URL, and this API/v1/jobs we found earlier from the 404 page. And then we just add the job ID, and we see what comes back. The moment, nothing. Ollie?
I think you should do HTTPS. No?
Yeah, HTTPS. That should work.
Yeah, that looks much better.
I just tried it, it also works, yeah.
So, just for convenience, I pipe it to JQ to make it a little bit better. So you see that you get a JSON encoded object that reveals all the information about these jobs. And this is in particular the first contact point that you have with the API. You can use this already to do a lot of amazing things. And this is the starting point for today's actual workshop, where we are going to write a Python script. So, sorry, I forgot one thing, because this is only half of the story. This is the easy part. The difficult or the more advanced part comes when you need to add different parameters. For instance, for a job overview, as you can find on the OpenQA instance, if I go on any of the running jobs, and I select now Tumbleweed and the latest builds, then in the address bar, you see a list of really useful parameters. And this you normally can take one-to-one to your request on the OpenQA API. So if you, for instance, want to do a job overview, the 404 page doesn't tell you exactly which parameters that are useful to use there. However, you can use the web UI and do similar requests there, and then check out the URL there for figuring out how the parameters look like and what is probably the way how you're going to do it. This is useful for most cases. If you need more advanced stuff, then you probably should refer better to the code or some other experts. But this solves 90% of the issues that you have. The combination of the 404 page and a clever usage of the web UI, where you look at the parameters in the address bar, most of the time sufficient for all the automation/monitoring tasks that I at least had to do over the past year. Okay, so this is the introduction. And next, we want to write a simple Python script. This morning, I published a blog post about this workshop. It's this one. I post the link also in the Jitsi channel. It's on my OpenQA Bytes blog. And the template and everything that we are doing in this workshop is posted on this blog post, including the examples. So keep this as a reference. And the exercise that we are going to do now is that we are writing a simple job overview program. So the tasks that we are setting to ourselves is that we want to monitor the OpenSUSE lib 15.3 images test runs. I just selected this one out there because why not? So the job groups, lib 15 sp3, and we want to display all of those jobs that are in this build in our terminal. So let's get our hands dirty. First, let's create a new Python file. I put it in the workshop, and I call this Willy, because why not? So now what we need is requests in JSON. I just paste the typical Python header in here, but there is no magic in it. And the first thing that we want to do is that we go to the overview page of the jobs that we want to monitor, and I just copy the URL over. Because the first thing that we need to do is to figure out what do we actually need to query. So, okay. Why is the code highlight not working? Now it is. So, from here, I tell you what the path is. You figure this out really easy with the usage of the 404 page. What we are using is jobs overview, and that comes from this overview page. What we also find out is which other parameters that we need to use, which are just those. So we assemble this together. Keep in mind, this is the web UI URL, and this is the API URL. You see the difference? API/v1/job/overview. Okay. So in the end, what we need to do is we just need to curl, or we need just to fetch this URL. I prepared a little block for doing so, which is just using requests.get. Then we just check if the status code is okay, And if the status code is a 202 code, then we just return the JSON of the body of the HTTP request. So now we say content group, because we are getting the content of the job group, is API.fetch and the URL that we have. And then we just do a simple JSON dumps, just to check if the things that we are having right now is actually working. So we are in the workshop group. I'm marking Willy as executable, and we are executing what we have right now. Of course, if you do live coding, there is always a syntax error. Okay, that doesn't look so bad. Let's use JQ just to check if this is reasonable. So this looks reasonable to me. What we get here is an overview of the different jobs that are there with name and the ID, which is already nice, but we would like to get the job state in the end. So what we need to do is that we are fetching the actual job status for each of them. The URL for fetching the job status we already figured out before. I go back to the page. It's API v1, and then we have jobs. I would need to scroll down to find the GET request of jobs. But in the end, it's pretty much self-explanatory. Yeah. Job ID, and then show the details of the specific jobs. So back to our Willy. What we need to do first is we need to extract all the job IDs from this JSON array.
Would you just like to get the status?
Yes.
If you like, you can try a new route, which is experimental/jobs ID/status, which is actually faster because it only gives you result status and the ID.
Yes, there is even a better way. I was expecting this question. You can use also overview.json. There are better ways of achieving this. For the purpose of really just playing around with the API, I would prefer to stay to the other things. But Ollie is absolutely right. There are better ways of achieving this. It's sometimes with the API, there are multiple ways of achieving actually what you want to do. They are more efficient. There are better ways. For this purpose, let's stick to the other approach, because I believe this is the easiest.
Exactly. Very good.
So this is when we are just fetching the ID of each of the jobs for job in C group. This, for everyone who is not so familiar in Python, this is a list comprehension where we create an array consisting of the ID of every job that we are iterating in the C groups. So this is in the end doing nothing else than just giving us an array of all the IDs that we have seen in the previous example. So let's comment out this print, this dumps, and let's check if this one works. Seems good. Okay. And what we need to do next is that we need to fetch the status of all of the jobs. In the same manner, we do a API fetch. Then comes this URL. The difficult part for those things, or not the difficult part, but the thing that appears very easy now because I have prepared is to finding out the URLs. But using of the 404 page should really give you the things. I now know that's API/v1/jobs, and then the job ID is the link to it, and this is really just the difficult part. So now for every jobs, let's just print, because this reveals something interesting. I get $10 if this works on the first try. Nice. Okay, it's working, it's not crashing. This looks good. Okay, we need to remove this print so that we can run it again, and I run it against JQ. because I would like to have the jobs and the JSON a bit ordered for an overview. Okay, this looks already very good. We can iterate through our jobs and start to query them. There is one peculiar thing, because the OpenQA API is a little bit inconsistent with itself sometimes. When you query the job, you get actually a dict with a job entity in here. This is really easy. This is not really much of a problem. You can easily work around with it. Just be aware, if you access the thing, sometimes you get the object itself, and sometimes you get a dict with the object as the first element of the dict. I'm telling you this because it can save 1 or 2 gray hair. It's really easy to work around, not much of a problem. If you run into key errors or similar issues, check if this is actually the case. So, because what we would like now to do is to get the job state and the job results. You see that the job itself, it has a lot of different other settings. It tells you which test it is, when it started, when it finished. It tells you about its children. It has really a lot of useful information. However, at the moment, we are only interested in result and in state. So let's get this out of there. We need the job ID. We need the name. And we need the state. JSON is awesome, by the way. So, and now let's just print the job ID, the name, and the state of everything. I intentionally made an error in this one, and we will see now what will happen. Let's go to our Willyback again. So apparently the ID doesn't exist in our job. I just did the mistake that I told you that we need not to do, because job contains job in itself. We see this here. I leave this open on the side. So the first thing that we actually need to do is to get the job out of the job. So I hope I didn't lose you so far. Okay. So let's run this again. Now we should be able to fetch all of the jobs, and it already looks pretty good. So we get a listing of all of the jobs in 15 SP3 images with the ID, with the name, and with the state. We see, in principle, all of them are done, and that doesn't appear really useful for me. The reason is that we are using the state, and we are not using the result. So state is only telling you if the job is still scheduled, if it is assigned, if it is incomplete, or if it is done. What we want to have in the end is the result. But we only want to have the result if the job is done. So only if the state is done, then replace the state with the result. And let's go for it. Because in the end, we want to monitor in this example if the jobs are passing or if they are failing. Now it looks already much better. We have some passed jobs, we have some soft failure, and we have a failed job. Now this per se is already pretty useful, but let's add some colors to it so that we can really color code the whole thing and display the failed ones immediately as failed ones. I'm using just ANSI terminal codes for this, and I have already prepared a class that does this for me. So I'm gonna fast forward, dump it in there, and quickly go over it. So that all of this is in the example, so you can follow it or online or afterwards. So this is just a class that contains some of the ANSI escape codes, and if you print those to the terminal, then the following text will be colored in the according color. So we have black, red, yellow, blah, blah, blah. And we also have a method that, depending on the state, it is returning one of the colors. So if the state is running, we get a blue color. For assigned and scheduled, we get we get cyan, which is a brighter blue color. Failed, of course, red. Soft failed, yellow. Passed, green. And there is a special one, failed, ignored, which we will see now why I introduced this. But in principle, this is just a copy and paste method of getting the ANSI codes of color coding the different runs. So let's do this first. I say color equals decolor for terminal color, and then color state of my state. And then we just add, let's make this also a little bit nicer. So first let's print the color. Then I want to have another string that is 100 characters long, aligned to the left for the name. And then let's get a let's do a separator with the tab and get another string which is 20 characters long, and that's it, I think. So okay, we remove the job ID. We want first to print the color, then the name, which is 100 characters long, and then the state, which is another 20 characters long. And in the end, important, do a decolor.reset, which is the terminal escape sequence for not coloring the following characters in this color anymore. Let's see if this works. Delay is working. Looks pretty good already, I believe. We have some artifacts here. I need to check. Of course, the S goes at the end for those sequences. Otherwise, it is interpreted as additional string. So while this is running, minus 100s means 100 characters wide. Minus means align to the left, and S means it should be a string. So this one is replaced with the second argument, enhanced to 100 characters, aligned to the left, and it is a string that it should be printed. And this is the result that we are getting there. This already looks pretty good. So what is an interesting thing in OpenSUSE is that if you go to those test runs, then we have, for instance, this one. In SUSE, we have this kdump and trash, which is a failing test run. And there is a very special comment. Fabian commented here, DTM ignore, which means, well, which tells OpenQA or the bots behind OpenQA to ignore those test runs. It would be awesome if our tool can be extended to incorporate those comments and mark those tests in the example that we have as ignored, because this is a failure, but one of the users already commented on it. This is fine. This can happen. We should not worry about this. And this is the next thing that we want to include in our video. So let's query some comments. If the state is failed, and only then, we want to get the comments. So the comments are again rp fetch. Okay, I need to figure out how to get comments now. So I go to the 404 page and I just search for comment. Jobs, job ID number comment. Okay, that already looks good, but this is the lead. Then I see that we have jobs, job number comments. This is a post, which is cool because this means we can also post comments. But I want to actually see. I need to scroll a little bit down. Here I have the GET request. So what I need to do is API v version 1 jobs, then the job ID number, and then /comments. This is okay. That I can do. So I'm lazy. I'm just copying this link from up here down there, because why not? and I see that I need to add comments at the end. And this %d, which is an integer, needs to be replaced by job ID by our job ID. Exactly. The comments we get directly as JSON array, we don't have to do much here. So when debugging, I want to just print the comments, and I don't care about anything else. So I comment out the other print. So let's see. What should happen now is that we get printed all the comments that this little script, our Willy, fetches for all of the failed jobs. Thank you, because I want to have that nice. It's working. Oh, that looks very good. So we see here the structure of the comments that we are getting back. And what we see here, there are two interesting things. So we see rendered markdown, which means we get the HTTP code of the markdown text, and we are seeing text. So it's difficult to find it here. Here is the relevant comment. And I see that in text, there is this @ttmignore. This is awesome, because we just have to search or to get the text out of this JSON element and search for ttmignore. I copy this because I'm lazy. So I now do for every comment, if there is, so I do text, I just get the text field out of the comment, and if there is @ttmignore in text, then the state should be set to failed ignored. This is the state that we have declared before, and I was not telling you until now why I introduced this. And this is awesome, because those states will be now set to failed ignored and colored then in bright yellow and not in red anymore. Okay. We have a question. Yanis?
Yeah, it seems like you went through all this to realize actually that it will be beneficial if we update in case the API to return actually ignore field.
That is
just
would be a different discussion that might be useful. However, for now, I would like to stay on the pragmatic approach of let's just see what is there and just play a little bit around with it.
Yeah, good job. Go on.
Yeah, this is useful. Perhaps didn't thought about it yet. Okay. However, back to the scope. What we have added here is that for failed jobs, we are now scraping the comments. We are looking for this special @ttmignore, and if this happens, then we are setting the states to failed ignore. I removed the JSON dump, and I have uncommented the old print. So this should, in principle, work. Will it's doing its job, and I already see some yellow comments. This is nice. Okay, I don't know why the other failed ones are there. They were not there yesterday, but perhaps they were still running. But in principle, that is our first tool, and it does already an amazing job. It's color code, it's getting all the jobs, it's color coding them, and for the failed ones, we are getting even a different color code if there are comments in it that tell us explicitly those are known failures and we can ignore them. So at the end of the day, all that remains is we have to check the red ones, which is amazing. So that was example 1. Are there any questions on this? Okay. Very good. I hope I'm not alone in this room anymore and you're still able to follow me.
It's awesome, Felix. We are continue.
So this was our Willy. Example 2 that I have picked out is to do actually the same, but to use a library that already exists. I need to cheat now. Yanis?
Question from your experience, what's the limitations that you found?
That is difficult to tell. In principle, I find the API pretty awesome. It does really a good job in providing the information. Sometimes you have to work around a little bit on some of peculiarities. There is, when I was working in job groups, there is one field that sometimes gets returned as a string, sometimes as an integer, which works very well for languages like Perl and Python. Go as a statically typed language stumbles there a little bit, but it's all, those are just minor issues that you can easily work around. Good one. The biggest, it's not a limitation, but when you want to access more advanced stuff like modifying or deleting jobs, you need to provide an authentication header. And this is actually example 2. And programming the authentication header yourself is non-trivial. But fortunately, and this brings us to example 2, there is already a library that does this for you. So since there have been some questions, if someone else wants to ask something, now would be a good time.
Sorry, the request has the authentication. It gives you a mechanism to do authentication. What do you mean? For the GET requests, you just send the GET request there and you get the information. However, if you want to delete a job, OpenQA tells you, I don't know you. You need to provide me an API key and secret before I let you in. Yeah, I'm not just letting random people delete my jobs. No. And implementing this authentication header is a bit of a fuss if you want to do it yourself. What we have done until now was really working with the OpenQA API from scratch. And you don't have to, especially for more advanced stuff. There is already a library that takes the authentication header away from you. Does that answer your question, Yanis? Not sure. I know that the request package in Python has, so it's not so, it's well, yeah, anyway, yeah, okay. I get your point.
One comment regarding authentication is that one year ago, or originally, actually, it was a bit more complicated to use authentication. Since then, we actually have implemented personal access tokens based on the username, key, and secret. If you're interested in using that, there is also an example now in the documentation of OpenQA using curl, how to use authentication. And of course, the Python requests package can easily use that. So it's a more recent feature where this is also easier now for something like Python requests or curl. But of course, Felix, you wanted to show something else, and I assume there are more conveniences provided by the library than just authentication, right?
Yeah. Thank you. That's actually super cool. Didn't know that. So I'm advancing with the next part, and for that one I have to cheat on my own blog post because I don't remember the link to the, this is exactly the example that we have been doing, the link to the OpenQA library. Yes. So there is this PyPy project, the OpenQA library. You can just easily install this with pip. Please, don't install it system-wide, use -- user, but that's a different thing. And it really encapsulates the request. This OpenQA request method is the juice of the whole library. So what you are going to do is you give it the method and you give it the API path, and it does everything else for you. If you're doing the lead request, it adds the authentication header, same for post requests, and it loads the configuration that you have stored in etc OpenQA client.conf or in your home directory. So this very neatly integrates in your existing OpenQA workflow, and it takes away the hassle of adding authentication to your requests while providing a very generic, low-level interface to the OpenQA API. And so this brings us to example 2, where I actually want to redo the same as we have been doing now, but using the OpenQA client. So video. Let's use Fritz, because why not? So what we will still need is JSON, and I am lazy. I'm copying it just from here. With this, we get the OpenQA client. So, typical guard, that's the program code is only executed if we are executing this as program. So what I want to have is the client. It's already using OpenQA OpenSUSE.org. And I just name it O. So for this example, we are not querying, we are querying actually tumbleweed. I have prepared some of the parameters already, and this is just what you get if you go on openqa.opensuse.org. If you just go to the tumbleweed group and to the latest build of yesterday, then those are exactly the parameters that you get. I have no idea why currently the build number is offset by 3 days or by 2 days. Don't ask me about it. I just use the parameters that were provided here. So for the sake of this example, I copy the link in here. Let's copy the whole link in here. And then you see I have been just extracting distri OpenSUSE. I'm ignoring MicroOS for this request. You can also include it, but you don't have to. I just use distri OpenSUSE. I use version tumbleweed. I use the build, and I use the group ID. And what we want to do next is the content of the group that we are fetching. It's O. How was this method called again? Yeah, OpenQA Request. Then we are doing a GET request. The path is jobs overview. This is something that we find out when we are searching for overview here. Jobs overview, return the latest jobs matching the specified arch, build, distri, version, flavor, and group ID. This is something that I tell you at this point. If you want to find it, you find it with the 404 trick that I showed you before. So this is the path, and the params are params. And we are going to assemble them now. Because one of the cool things of this library is that you can just pass a Python dictionary to it, and it will assemble it himself. Distri, okay. I just copy paste this from the template so that I can go back to the question that who raised the hand?
I raised the hand. You actually come up to really interesting point. So here you said that like MicroOS we can skip it, but you can add it. But I'm just wondering how you will add it, because you're passing a dict, and distri will be a key.
I tried to avoid this question. I don't know how to do this in here.
Oli, do you know if it's possible?
Well, what you can do is just leave out both distri keys. Both distri parameters, and then you should receive test results from all. So basically, distri here is used to limit and to filter. If you don't want to limit and filter, because there are just these two. Yeah. If you want to filter, use one of the two. If you don't, then leave it out.
So basically, answer it's not possible.
I don't know. I would say, Anton, let's go.
Can you try something?
And when
the answer is we don't know. Yeah.
Anton, let's just go on, and when we have the working script ready, then just let's pass an array here and see how the library behaves.
Can you try something? To pass a string directly.
Yes, but let's first go on and make the other stuff working, and then we go back to this experiment. I keep it in mind. I'll write it here to do MicroOS, so we don't forget about it. Okay, so that's what we do. Now let's just print what we have here. C group, and see what our fix does. Okay. I clear the screen so we have it. It was so clear that something will not go well. Well, if I copy and paste stuff, then I should not wonder if the identification, if the indent is not working. Okay, that was fast, and it seems to work. Okay. From here onwards, fetching the state and everything is really just exactly the same as we have been doing before. So I just go fast forward. I first extract the job IDs. It's one-to-one exactly the line as we have been doing before. And now I fetch the jobs. And that is different. There is this getJobs method in the library. And all that you pass to this one is the jobs as job ID. And this should return all the jobs. Let's see if this is the case. Name equals job name, and state is job state. Print name state. Now, just run it. It takes a little bit longer already, which is a good sign, because it goes through every job in itself. Looks very good to me. So, this is in principle example 2, where we have done the same as in example 1, just using the provided OpenQA client library. And this one is really your friend because it makes all the requests much easier if you want to do some more advanced stuff. So this is in principle the end of my example. And I would now try to pass MicroOS to this tree here and just see how this behaves. So let's just make this OpenSUSE and MicroOS. I'm wondering how we see a difference. I think the best is that we do this way. And then we are just printing the len of the job IDs.
Yeah, it must
So
be
that-
this tree. You missed a character in line 20.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay. So this is 300,378. This is only OpenSUSE. And now let's see what happens if we add. Actually looks pretty good to me.
Yep.
Let's go one step further. Print all the jobs and grab for MicroOS, just to see what happens.
There is supposed to be field distri in the job, no? So you can just print the distri.
Yeah. Well, that actually looks good to me. I would need to do a careful check if this is really correct, but it returns stuff that was not there, presumably before.
Nice.
And those are, we're missing 22 lines. Those are how many lines? Those are exactly 22 lines. Anton, is this enough for you as proof?
Yes. Yes, it's enough. Thanks.
I told you already that this library is actually pretty awesome.
Yes.
Okay, so that concludes in principle the practical part of the workshop. I hope you guys enjoyed it. You could take something with you. Both examples are provided on the reference link on my OpenQA Bytes blog post. Feel free to use them as a template for your future projects. And now, since we are 3 days past the autumn solens and the days are becoming shorter and the nights are becoming longer, perhaps one or two has some crazy ideas what to do with this. So thank you. And if anyone has further questions, then I'm still here for a little bit.
Awesome. Thank you so far so much. It's really impressive how you dared to write completely interactively, rewrite two new tools, basically replicating just a tiny part of what you already have with the already existing OpenQA Mon application. Yeah, so it's great to not only see what can be achieved, but also the way how to actually get there. So thank you very much for presenting that, what I think is a good template and a good introduction also for others to follow.
Thank you. Jose, go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, so just wanted to mention, it's not a question, it's a statement. So this is going to be used, or at least this way of handling the API in our containers team to trigger the tests and also retrieve the status and wait for the status to be passed or failed, and take a decision based on that to release the images or not. So currently this is happening only in Bash. So these API calls, these nice API calls that Felix showed, they are currently Bash, and it's using basically this JSON query thingy. So this is going to be rewrite everything in Python, as Felix shown here. So it's a good example of how to use this.
Jose, if you raise these topics, then we should mention also Trigger Public Cloud, which is written in Perl, and also use the same API. But yeah, we don't use. We don't use OpenQA client. We use just OpenQA CLI as a command line tool. But we're basically doing the same parsing and also doing some judgments based on that. So yeah, and I think that we are not the only one here. I think that a lot of projects are doing something the same.
Yeah. Good that you mentioned it. I forgot almost about it. So this Bash tool or this Perl tool that you can run just in any console, OpenQA CLI, is just using exactly the same parts. It's just returning it. The difference is only you run a Perl script and not your call in a Python script. And that's why I'm saying it. I started some weeks ago OpenQA CLI cheat sheet. For your convenience, I just put the link in here. It might make your life a little bit easier. If someone has cool ideas what to put in there additionally, you'll find my email address on that site. Please just send me suggestions. I will add this to the page. But yes. Thanks for the addition, Anton and Jose.
Sure.
One crazy idea that you can do with this is, or the first thing that comes to my mind is to create a DSL language actually, to avoid some, for example, to create a language and say, give me this job and these results directly.
Can you repeat the first part? I didn't understood that. You want to create what? A DSL?
Language, yeah.
What is
on this API.
What is it?
So in the first example, you went through to collect all the jobs, and then from each job to go check the status and the state. It would be nice if you could have a framework and say, I want all this built, and from this give me all the fails.
Ollie, I redirect that question towards you. I find that actually a super cool idea. I have no idea if this can be done. Something like a SQL-oriented language where you can query OpenQA and you can fetch different fields depending on some where clauses or something like that. Would be pretty cool.
But there is already SQL language for me, it sounds like somehow, yeah, it would be cool, but the amount of work which it requires and the creation of additional layer, I don't know.
Yeah, makes sense.
There is an open port, you can query tables, and I think like at least majority of us are capable to query SQL. And
Yeah,
yeah,
but it's different and completely different. If you have to write code to create the SQL request, you have to take care of many things. But if you have the framework to do that for you, it's more easy to code, to create applications around.
Yeah, but first of all, this just means that someone else will do job for you. This doesn't mean that this job will be skipped. And second, you are creating additional layer which can bring some bugs and give you more work, not less work, because you will get some unexpected results, and then you would start wondering why, and then it because this DSL interpretation layer is doing something wrong, and you start catching bugs in yet another tool. Or you just simply open SQL client and query the table, and you know what you get, and you are super sure that if you query for the job, you get some certain jobs.
Yeah,
I'd say
so there's
it's an idea.
Say again?
I'd say it's an idea, and it would require to think about it if it makes sense. But yeah. Okay. Anna.
Yeah, I don't have a question. I would like also to thank you for the presentation. Actually, I have been in many more presentations of you when we were in the same squad when you were doing these nice tools, and I really appreciate what you're doing and you're showing to us. I am also a big fan of your blog. I go from time to time to see if you have posted something new, and all your posts are really interesting. And yeah, that's what I wanted to say, Felix.
Thank you, Anna. I'm glad to help.
Okay, cool. Yeah, thank you all very much for attending. Thank you, Felix, for guiding us through this nice API jungle here. Next week workshop will be again the monthly discussion about the SUSE QE Tools roadmap. That's each first Friday of a month. And after that, the next week after that, we will have a really interesting brainstorming session for better connecting OBS and OpenQA with outgoing webhooks. So I'm looking also forward to that, and I'm looking forward to finding many of you attending there. Until then, thank you, see you, and goodbye.